Welcome to English Through Ideas podcast, where we learn English through powerful ideas. Imagine running like 240 miles through the hot, blistering desert. Or, if that doesn't scare you, picture purposely jumping out of an airplane right into a roaring forest fire, carrying only the gear you can strap to your body.
Yeah, for the vast majority of us, those situations sound like extreme movie plots
Yeah.
or, just absolute nightmares. But for David Goggins, the subject of today's deep dive, that's just a Tuesday. Today we are looking at an incredibly revealing interview he did with Chris Williamson.
Right, and most people probably know Goggins as that intense, constantly yelling fitness guy, the guy running on broken legs. But these sources paint a really different picture because under that loud exterior, he is actually a very deep philosophical thinker.
Exactly. And I want to say right away, we aren't here to convince you to go out and run an ultramarathon. Please, leave your running shoes in the closet. The mission today is to pull out his mental frameworks.
Yeah, because whether you are trying to prep for a massive project at work or overcome a personal problem or just, figure out how to stop hitting the snooze button, these psychological tools are totally applicable.
They really are. We're talking about armoring your mind, outworking your self-doubt, and doing a kind of live autopsy on your past traumas. So let's start with how society views success. Because we are usually taught that success is the finish line, right?
Right. You put in the brutal hours, you get the promotion, you make the money, and then you just reap the rewards. You relax.
Exactly. But in this interview, we see a perspective where success is actually treated as a highly dangerous trap. Because, well, comfort creates laziness. Think about his position. He is a retired Navy SEAL, a best-selling author, and he could easily just spend the rest of his life doing high-paid speaking events.
He has the ultimate resume.
He really does. But he realizes that relying on that resume stops his growth. He argues that to keep helping people, he can't offer advice that comes from a soft, comfortable place. The insight has to continually come from the dirt, so to speak.
So to avoid that trap of comfort, he actively puts a limit on his success. He turns his back on million-dollar opportunities just to take a job making like $12 to $15 an hour as a smoke jumper in British Columbia.
Which is wild.
It's crazy. We are talking about flying over a burning forest, dropping out of a plane into a super tight zone, and spending up to 7 days straight working through freezing nights to put out wildfires by hand.
Yeah. It is deliberate, manufactured discomfort. He explicitly looks for those moments where he's freezing, totally exhausted, making minimum wage, and his brain is just screaming, "Why are you here? You're wealthy. You don't need to do this."
Right. His ego is demanding comfort.
Exactly. And that precise moment of internal questioning is where he believes real growth happens.
It reminds me of playing a massive video game. You put in hundreds of hours, you beat the final boss, you get the best armor, and you become the most powerful character. But instead of just enjoying the victory screen, you deliberately reset your character back to level 1.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
Yeah, with zero equipment, just so you can play the whole game over again on the hardest possible setting.
That reset button is what he calls trained humility. We usually think of humility as a passive thing, being modest or politely refusing a compliment. But he views it as an active, really grueling practice. The sources highlight his deep respect for a man named William Crawford to show this.
Oh, the Crawford story is amazing. For those who don't know, Crawford was a Medal of Honor winner, the highest military award. And yet later in life, he took a job as a janitor at the Air Force Academy.
Right.
He spent his days cleaning toilets for young cadets who had absolutely no idea who he was or what he had done. He kept this incredible honor hidden in his closet and just quietly picked up a broom.
The psychological discipline required for that is just immense. To starve your own ego when you have the ultimate trump card in your pocket. For Goggins, Crawford is the ultimate proof that growth does not happen during victory laps.
It happens when you are actively serving.
Yes. When you refuse to view yourself as better than anyone else, and when you are willing to do the dirty work, even after you have supposedly proven yourself. The second you believe you are too good for the dirt, you lose your edge.
Okay, but if you are actively seeking out these miserable, freezing situations just to keep your ego in check, how do you actually endure them?
That's the big question.
Right, because if you are out there in the freezing wilderness, pushing your body past its physical limits, your survival instincts are going to kick in. How do you stop yourself from quitting when your brain is literally demanding that you stop?
Well, the mechanics of this discipline are really laid bare when he talks about Navy SEAL training. Specifically, the part called Hell Week. This is basically 130 hours of continuous physical and mental torture.
Just the name Hell Week says it all.
Yeah, but the psychological shift into that torture is where the real battle happens. He describes the start of Hell Week as almost like a big party. You have guys linking arms, they're firing blanks from guns, setting off loud grenades. Adrenaline is high, everyone is cheering each other on.
Right, they are totally hyped up.
But then, the instructors shut all the noise off. The guns stop. It goes completely dead quiet. And they march the candidates out into the freezing Pacific Ocean for surf torture. You are just laying there while freezing cold waves crash over your head.
And all that motivation from the party vibe just vanishes.
Exactly. Your mind simply cannot process the fact that you have 130 hours of this left. You enter pure fight-or-flight mode.
He calls this the 1-second decision, right?
Yes. It's that precise moment the freezing water hits, panic completely takes over, and you instantly forget every noble reason you had for being there. You don't care about becoming a SEAL anymore. Your entire universe shrinks down to just wanting a warm shower.
And that 1 second is where almost everyone quits.
Right. Because in that state of immense pain, the logical part of your brain is hijacked. You just cannot think rationally.
I have to push back here, though, on behalf of anyone listening who wants to apply this. In that exact second of freezing panic, when your brain is hijacked by basic survival instincts, how are you supposed to just magically find discipline? You can't simply tell yourself to be disciplined when your body thinks it's dying.
You're right, you can't. Motivation is entirely useless in that moment. It's just a spark that burns out as soon as the cold water hits. So what he uses is a radical kind of mental separation.
Like putting things in different boxes.
Exactly. Physically, he forces his body to remain in the water, but mentally, he projects himself out of the ocean and onto the beach.
Oh, he focuses on the instructors standing on the shore, right, the ones in their warm coats drinking hot coffee.
Yeah, he mentally places himself inside that warm coat. And by picturing himself in a state of comfort, he actually calms his nervous system down just enough to get his logical reasoning back.
Wow, so he hacks his own brain.
He does. And once logic returns, he fast forwards. He projects himself 20 years into the future and asks himself, if I quit right now just to get warm, how will I feel tomorrow? How will I feel in 10 years?
Oh, that's powerful.
He realizes the warmth of a shower only lasts 10 minutes. But the shame and regret of quitting will stay with him for the rest of his life. He uses the fear of future regret to overpower the panic of present pain.
But he also stresses that you cannot attempt that kind of mental time travel if your mind is a mess. You need an organized mental garage.
Yes, you can't access discipline if you are frantic. You picture your mind as a garage, most people have a complete disaster in there. Stress from work, relationship problems, money worries, all just thrown into messy piles.
So when something goes wrong and you need to find your discipline, you can't.
Right, you are digging through cluttered boxes in the dark while your mental circuit breaker blows. You just give up.
To keep the floor clear, he maintains this intense daily routine, like 2 hours of meditation every single night.
Which is a lot.
It is. And it's not to achieve some peaceful Zen state. It's literally to sweep the floor of the mental garage. He puts the work stress on one shelf, the relationship stress on another, making sure discipline has a clear, easily reachable spot.
And then he wakes up at 5 in the morning to run 12 miles. Explicitly because he hates doing it.
Wait, he does it because he hates it.
Exactly. He views the moment you open your phone or step out your front door as the moment the outside world starts its attack on you. That morning run is a layer of psychological armor. He is creating controlled misery on his own terms so that the unexpected misery of the real world cannot break him.
Okay, but what happens when that outside attack gets personal? Because when you push boundaries, criticism is inevitable. People will judge you. And his method for handling online hate is, honestly, highly unusual.
Really is.
Yeah.
He doesn't just ignore the internet trolls. He actively hunts for negative comments, takes pictures of them, and creates audio mixtapes of people talking trash about him.
That sounds crazy.
He puts these insults on a loop and listens to them while he trains.
It sounds so counterproductive to just surround yourself with negativity, like fueling your car with toxic waste. How does absorbing hours of customized hate not completely poison your own mind?
Comes down to a kind of scientific distance, stepping back emotionally. When he listens to those tapes, he isn't taking the insults to heart. He is studying the bully.
Oh, interesting.
He looks back at his own past, remembering a time when he was an underachieving, deeply insecure person. Back then, if he saw someone succeeding, his first instinct was to tear them down to make his own failures feel less painful.
So when he hears the hate now, he doesn't hear a critique of his own character.
Right. He hears a diagnostic report on the person typing the comment. He actually pities them. He recognizes that no truly happy, mentally healthy person spends their time trying to destroy strangers on the internet.
By analyzing the hate, he takes its power away.
Exactly. It transforms into proof that he is pushing the exact boundaries that make lazy people uncomfortable.
But what if your problem isn't online trolls, but the people who actually raised you? Because a lot of people feel permanently stuck because they grew up in really toxic environments with no positive role models. And Goggins introduces this brilliant idea of the reverse role model.
Yes, it is an incredibly practical tool for anyone who grew up around toxicity. You observe a dysfunctional family member, someone who lies or manipulates or ruins their own life, and instead of feeling hopeless about not having a guide, you use them as a flawless blueprint for how not to live.
You take really detailed mental notes like, I will never treat my spouse like that, or I will not handle money problems like that.
Exactly. Success then becomes the calculated choice to avoid their specific failures. Their disastrous example becomes your map, pointing you in the exact opposite direction. You don't need a hero to copy if you have a perfect anti-hero to run away from.
That's such a helpful way to reframe a bad childhood. But where does this deep ability to detach, to study bullies, and to separate trauma actually come from? To understand this mental armor, the sources take us back to his original wound.
The interview details a huge decision he made to visit his abusive father later in life. And the most important part of this visit was his mindset. He walked in explicitly, not wanting an apology.
Which goes against almost all conventional advice, right? Usually the ultimate goal of facing someone who abused you is to hear them say, I'm sorry, I was wrong.
Right, but he realized an apology would be a lethal trap for him. If his father admitted fault and validated the damage, it would give Goggins a permanent excuse to be a failure. He could say, well, my own father admits he ruined me, so I have permission to stop trying.
An apology in that specific context would just lock him into the role of a permanent victim.
Exactly.
It's like walking into a hospital with a broken arm and refusing the pain medicine. You say no to the relief because you need to feel exactly where the bone is broken so the doctor can fix it properly. He refused the comfort of an apology because he needed to examine the break.
He calls this process the live autopsy. Normally, autopsies are done on dead bodies to see why they died. He did one on himself while he was alive to understand why he was dying on the inside. During this visit, he observed his father not as a monster, but as a clinical subject.
And he uncovered his father's own horrific trauma. He learned that his grandfather used to make his father stand next to an open furnace and whipped him. If he flinched, he burned against the hot iron.
It is a brutal story, but understanding it changed everything for him. He realized the abuse he went through wasn't a personal curse. It wasn't proof that he was broken or unlovable. It was just a mechanical transfer of unhealed trauma from one generation to the next.
And recognizing that allowed him to step outside the cycle and break the chain.
Yes, but he didn't just quietly process this trauma. He weaponized it. He and his mother actually worked together on his audiobook, recording very honest conversations about the abuse for millions of people to hear.
Which takes incredible bravery.
It operates on the exact same psychological idea as the rapper Eminem in the final battle of the movie 8 Mile.
Oh, right, where Eminem's character insults himself before his opponent can.
Exactly. By taking the microphone and aggressively sharing every single embarrassing, painful, and flawed detail of his own life, he neutralizes the weapon. Once you willingly show your deepest wounds to the light, no critic, no bully, and no internal voice of self-doubt can ever use them against you. The ammunition is just gone.
That is amazing. So bringing this all together for you listening, growth doesn't stop at the finish line. It requires you to actively limit your success and seek the cold dirt to build trained humility.
And true endurance isn't sustained by feeling hyped up at a party. It is the cold logic of the 1-second decision, which you could only access if you keep a very clean, organized mental garage.
And finally, your deepest traumas and loudest critics do not have to be heavyweights that pull you underwater. Through that scientific distance and the willingness to do a live autopsy on your own past, they can become your ultimate mental armor.
True peace, in this way of thinking, isn't found lying on a sunny beach. It is found right in the middle of the battle, looking back at the terrified kid you used to be, and knowing exactly what you had the strength to overcome.
Which leads to a final thought for you to take away. We usually rely on an upcoming race, a big test, or the pressure of an audience to motivate us to do the hard work. We rely on external dates on a calendar.
But what would happen if you trained yourself to perform at your absolute highest level, even when the calendar is totally empty?
What if you pushed your boundaries on a random Tuesday when absolutely no one was watching? What if the only purpose you ever needed was the quiet, undeniable pride of mastering yourself? Thank you for learning with English through ideas. If you enjoyed this podcast, subscribe for more ideas, more English, and more growth.